The Galactic Council chamber was built to remind every visitor of their place. Commander Armin Hale felt that truth the moment he stepped through the threshold. The hall stretched far beyond human architectural logic, a vast circular arena carved from a single luminous alloy that shimmered between gold and bronze. Tier upon tier of seating rose upward in perfect rings, each level higher than the last, each position assigned according to power, influence, and age. The oldest civilizations sat closest to the radiant apex, elevated so high they seemed to look down on the rest of existence itself. And at the very bottom, barely above the polished floor, was the human seat. A narrow platform, almost an afterthought. Armin paused only briefly before stepping onto it. He had expected this. The air carried a faint hum, not from machines, but from the overlapping voices of dozens of species speaking in frequencies both audible and otherwise. Translators in his collar filtered the noise into something manageable, though the undercurrent of judgment came through clearly without assistance. They were studying him. Not with curiosity. With dismissal. He clasped his hands behind his back and stood still, letting his gaze move across the chamber. He did not stare upward. He did not acknowledge the hierarchy. Instead, he observed, counting exits, measuring distances, noting patterns of movement. Old habits did not fade, even in diplomacy. Especially not here. At the highest tier, seated upon a throne-like structure woven from living crystal, was High Executor Verex. The Zelnari leader did not move when Armin entered, but the weight of his presence was unmistakable. Tall even while seated, his elongated frame draped in layered ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid metal. His skin bore a pale, almost translucent quality, faint veins of light pulsing beneath the surface. His eyes, large, multifaceted, fixed on Armin with calculated disinterest. Verex did not speak immediately. He allowed the silence to stretch, deliberate and oppressive. A tactic. Armin recognized it. He remained still. The chamber dimmed slightly as the central dais activated, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy between them. Thousands of systems glowed in varying intensities, some bright with activity, others faint, nearly forgotten. A small blue marker pulsed near the edge. Earth. Representation of Sol 3. Verex said at last, his voice smooth and resonant, amplified across the chamber. You stand before the Council of Unified Systems. Armin inclined his head, not submission, merely acknowledgement. I am Commander Armin Hale, diplomatic envoy for Earth. A ripple moved through the assembly. Some leaned forward. Others shifted, uninterested. A few watched closely. Your designation is recent, Verex continued. Your presence here, provisional. Armin said nothing. Newly admitted civilizations, Verex said, are required to demonstrate value. Contribution ensures stability. Stability ensures survival. The holographic map shifted. Trade routes lit up in flowing lines. Resource worlds flickered with data overlays. Fleet positions appeared, precise and ordered. This is the framework of our unity, Verex said. Each species provides. Each species benefits. A pause. Earth has provided nothing. A faint murmur followed. Armin could feel it now, the shift from curiosity to expectation. They were waiting for him to respond, to justify his species' existence. He kept his voice level. We have not been given the opportunity. A few heads turned. Verex's gaze sharpened, just slightly. Opportunity is not given, he said. It is taken. Your world has existed within monitored space for several of your cycles. You have expanded minimally. Your fleet is negligible. Your resource output is unimpressive. The words were precise. Surgical. Therefore, Verex continued, the Council has reached a preliminary conclusion. The map dimmed. A new projection formed, Earth system, isolated. You will provide tribute. The word hung in the air. Not a request. A directive. Resources, Verex said. Labor. Or military integration. Your capabilities will be assessed and assigned where needed. The chamber grew quiet. Armin let the silence settle before he answered. No. The reaction was immediate. Not loud, but sharp. A break in expectation. Verex did not move, but the light beneath his skin pulsed once brighter. You will clarify, he said. Armin met his gaze. Earth does not provide tribute. A longer silence followed. Then, scattered laughter, low, disbelieving. From higher tiers. A species with elongated limbs and iridescent skin leaned forward, its voice chiming through the translators. You misunderstand your position, human. This is not negotiation. Another voice, deeper, edged with amusement. They are young. They believe defiance carries weight. Armin did not look at them. He kept his focus on Verex. We understand our position, he said. Verex tilted his head slightly, studying him now with something closer to interest. Do you? He asked. Armin held the gaze. We do. A subtle shift passed through the chamber. The dismissal was fading, replaced by something else. Verex rose. The movement was fluid, deliberate, drawing every eye back to him. When he stood, the scale of him became more apparent, tall, imposing, radiating authority that was not merely political, but absolute. You stand at the lowest tier of this chamber, Verex said. Your species has yet to prove its place among us. And still, you refuse? Armin's expression did not change. Yes. The answer landed harder this time. No hesitation. No explanation. Just refusal. Verex descended one step from his elevated position, not toward Armin, but enough to signal engagement. Defiance without strength, he said quietly, is self-destruction. Armin allowed himself a faint breath. Not a sigh. Measured. Then we will accept that risk. The chamber fell into complete silence. No murmurs. No laughter. Even the ambient hum seemed to fade. For the first time, Verex did not speak immediately. His gaze narrowed, studying the human before him, not as an anomaly, but as a variable. Unaccounted for. You are either ignorant, Verex said at last, or you are concealing something. Armin said nothing. A long moment passed. Then Verex straightened. The council will allow reconsideration, he said. 48 standard cycles. You will return with a revised position. A pause. Or face enforcement. The word carried weight. Not threat. Certainty. Armin inclined his head again. Understood. Verex's gaze lingered a moment longer, then shifted away, dismissing him with the same ease he might dismiss a minor system. The session moved on. Trade disputes. Border negotiations. Military allocations. Armin remained where he was, silent, observing, until the chamber gradually emptied. One by one, the representatives departed, their conversations low and controlled. None approached him. None acknowledged him. Until one did. A small figure, robed in layered data streams that flickered like liquid light, paused near the edge of the lower tier. Its form was indistinct, constantly shifting, as if its physical presence struggled to remain stable. An archivist. Its voice was soft, almost hesitant. Human. Armin turned slightly. Yes? The figure tilted, studying him in a way that felt different from the others. Not dismissive. Curious. There is inconsistency in your records. Armin's expression remained neutral. In what way? The archivist hesitated. Your world, it said. Its designation has changed multiple times. A faint pause. Why? Armin held its gaze. Then, after a moment, he answered. Names change, he said. Over time. The archivist remained still, processing. Yes, it said slowly. But not like this. Armin did not respond. The figure lingered a second longer, then withdrew, dissolving into the corridor beyond. Armin remained alone in the vast chamber. The holographic map still hovered faintly above the dais, its countless systems glowing in silent complexity. His gaze found the small blue marker again. Earth. He watched it for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out without another word. The council did not wait. By the time Commander Armin Hale returned to his assigned quarters, the investigation had already begun. The chamber might have appeared ceremonial, wrapped in tradition and hierarchy, but beneath that polished surface ran a network of surveillance, analysis, and control that rivaled any military command structure. Every newly admitted species was catalogued, dissected, and measured. Most never realized the depth of scrutiny they faced. Humanity had attracted more attention than expected. Armin stood before the wide observation window of his quarters, hands resting lightly behind his back. Beyond the transparent alloy stretched the endless void, scattered with distant stars and the faint glow of the blue giant that anchored the council's citadel. He didn't need reports to know what was happening. They were digging. The door behind him chimed once, soft, polite, but insistent. "Enter," Armin said. The panel slid open without sound. Two figures stepped inside. The first was unmistakable. High Executive Verex. The second remained just behind him, partially obscured, its form flickering in shifting layers of light. An archivist. Not the same one from the chamber, but of the same order. Armin turned slowly, meeting Verex's gaze without hesitation. "I wasn't informed of an audience," he said. "You were not granted one," Verex replied. "This is a necessity." Armin inclined his head slightly. "Then I assume this is not a social visit." A faint pulse of light ran beneath Verex's skin, amusement, perhaps. "No," he said. "It is not." The room adjusted automatically, lighting dimming as a holographic field activated between them. Data streams unfolded in midair, symbols, translations, reconstructed histories. Earth. Armin's eyes flicked to the projection, then back to Verex. "You've moved quickly," he said. "You have given us reason to," Verex replied. The archivist stepped forward, its voice layered with multiple tones, overlapping slightly as the translator struggled to unify them. "Your planetary records are fragmented," it said. "Inconsistent. Portions are sealed, others erased. Standard security protocols," Armin said evenly. "Not at this scale," the archivist replied. The hologram shifted. A designation appeared, glowing faintly. Sol 3. "Your system classification," the archivist said. "Accurate. Predictable." Another layer overlaid it. Terra. "Cultural designation," it continued. "Common among developing species." Then the projection fractured. Data streams collided, overlapping, failing to align. "Beyond this point," the archivist said, "records are incomplete. Multiple references indicate prior nomenclature." Armin said nothing. Verex watched him carefully. "Names are not arbitrary," Verex said. "They define identity, purpose, history." He stepped closer to the hologram. "Your world has too many." Armin's expression did not change. "Humanity has a long history," he said. "Names evolve. Not like this," the archivist repeated. The projection shifted again. This time, it displayed something else. Numbers. Dates. Conflict markers. The room seemed to grow colder. "Your species has recorded over 8,000 major conflicts," the archivist said, "and significantly more minor engagements." Images flickered briefly, too fast for full detail, but enough to suggest destruction. Cities burning. Landscapes scarred. Atmospheric detonations. Armin did not look away. "Internal wars," the archivist continued. "Repeated. Escalating. Global in scale." A new symbol appeared. Radiation markers. "Your species achieved nuclear fission," it said, "and deployed it on your own population centers." The silence that followed was different from before. Heavier. Verex's gaze sharpened. "No species survives that stage intact," he said quietly. Armin met his eyes. "We did." The archivist hesitated. "Your casualty projections indicate near extinction events," it said. Multiple. Yes. And yet, the archivist said, voice faltering slightly, your civilization persisted. Armin gave a small nod. We adapted. Verex studied him in silence. Then he turned slightly, gesturing for the archivist to continue. The projection shifted again. Orbital schematics appeared. Primitive satellites. Weaponized platforms. Early spaceflight trajectories. Your species militarized its orbit before achieving stable interplanetary expansion, the archivist said. Armin's voice remained steady. We secured our position. Against yourselves, Verex said. Armin did not deny it. Yes. The word lingered. The archivist's form flickered more intensely now, its processing strained. There are gaps, it said. Entire segments of your historical record are missing. Deliberately removed. Classified, Armin said. By whom? The archivist asked. Armin held its gaze. Us. Verex stepped forward, closing the distance between them. You are withholding information from the Council, he said. Yes. No hesitation. The response landed with quiet finality. The archivist shifted uneasily. This is a violation of protocol? Armin interrupted, his tone calm. So is unauthorized deep scanning of a sovereign species. The archivist stilled. Verex's expression did not change, but something in his posture shifted, subtle, but significant. You presume sovereignty, he said. We do not presume, Armin replied. We exist. A long silence followed. Then Verex moved again, circling slightly, as if viewing Armin from a different angle. You refuse tribute, he said. You conceal your past. You offer no alliance, no resource, no service. He stopped. And yet you stand here, unafraid. Armin's gaze did not waver. We are cautious. Not enough, Verex said. He gestured, and the projection changed once more. A new file appeared. Partially decrypted. Fragments of text hovered, incomplete but legible. Project Last Stand. The archivist stepped closer, its voice lowering. This file was heavily encrypted, it said. Beyond standard Council decryption protocols. A pause. We are still attempting to access its full contents. Armin's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. You should stop, he said. The archivist flickered. Why? Armin looked at it directly. Because you won't understand what you find. Verex's attention sharpened instantly. Explain, he said. Armin shook his head slightly. No. The word was quiet. Final. Verex held his gaze for several seconds. Then, slowly, he stepped back. Continue the decryption, he said to the archivist. Armin exhaled once. Measured. You're making a mistake, he said. The archivist hesitated. Verex did not. Mistakes are corrected, he said. Ignorance is not. The hologram flickered again. Another fragment surfaced. Text distorted but readable. If discovered by external entities. The room seemed to contract. The archivist stabilized the image. Continuing, it said. The final line resolved. Earth is not its true name. Silence fell. Not the calculated silence of the council chamber. Something else. Uncertain. The archivist's form dimmed slightly. What does this mean? It asked. Armin looked at the projection. Then back at them. It means, he said quietly, you should have stopped. Verex did not respond. But for the first time, the light beneath his skin pulsed, not with control, but with something closer to tension. The archivist withdrew a step. The room felt different now. Less certain. Less stable. Verex turned toward the exit. This changes nothing, he said. But the words lacked their earlier certainty. Armin said nothing. The door opened. Verex paused briefly, without looking back. 48 cycles, he said. Do not mistake curiosity for weakness. Then he left. The archivist followed, its form flickering erratically. The door sealed behind them. Armin remained where he stood. The hologram still hovered in the air, the final line glowing faintly. He watched it for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and deactivated the projection. Darkness returned to the room. Outside, the stars burned in silence. And somewhere within the council's systems, the decryption continued. The council chamber did not convene in full session often. This time it did. Every tier was occupied. Every seat filled. Species that rarely participated in routine deliberations had arrived without summons, drawn by a single anomaly, a developing world that refused compliance and hid its history behind encryption no one could easily breach. At the center of the chamber, the projection burned brighter than usual. Not a map. Not a diplomatic record. A file. Partially decrypted. Project Last Stand. The words hung in the air like a warning. High Executor Verex stood rather than sat. That alone shifted the atmosphere. The chamber quieted without instruction, every representative aware that something had moved beyond routine governance. Proceed, Verex said. The archivist stepped forward. Its form flickered unevenly, its processing strained by the data it carried. We have accessed additional layers, it said. The content is fragmented. Context is incomplete. A ripple moved through the assembly. Display, Verex ordered. The file expanded. Images appeared first. Not stylized. Not symbolic. Real. A world scarred by conflict. Cities reduced to skeletal frames. Oceans reflecting distant fire. Skies stained with unnatural light. The archivist's voice wavered slightly. These records predate unified planetary governance, it said. They depict internal global war. Silence settled, heavier than before. Another image replaced the first. A flash. Blinding. A sphere of light expanding outward, consuming everything in its radius. Radiation readings spiked across the projection. Multiple nuclear detonations, the archivist said. Deployed by the dominant species against itself. A low murmur spread across the chamber. That is impossible, a voice from the upper tiers said. A civilization does not survive that threshold. They did, another replied, quieter. The images continued. Famine. Collapse. Fragments of governments failing, then reforming. Each sequence ended the same way. Survival. Verex's gaze did not leave the projection. Continue, he said. The archivist hesitated, then complied. New data replaced the visuals. Physiological analysis. Human biology, mapped in detail. Subject species demonstrates unusually high adaptability, the archivist said. Rapid recovery from injury. Elevated tolerance to environmental extremes. Psychological resilience, inconsistent with baseline galactic models. Inconsistent? Verex asked. The archivist's form flickered. They persist beyond projected breaking points, it said. A representative leaned forward, its elongated form casting a narrow shadow. Clarify. The archivist processed. Under conditions that result in collapse for most species, it said. Humans, continue. The chamber grew still. The file shifted again. Environmental data now. Gravity readings. Atmospheric composition. Predatory lifeforms. Extreme weather patterns. Seismic activity. Planetary classification systems have been cross-referenced, the archivist said. The human homeworld exceeds standard survivability parameters. A pause. It qualifies as a high-risk biosphere. A quieter voice spoke from the lower tiers. A death world. The term spread through the chamber like a shockwave. Some recoiled slightly. Others leaned closer, drawn in despite themselves. Confirm classification, Verex said. The archivist processed for a moment longer than expected. Then, confirmed. The word landed with finality. A death world species. Rare. Unstable. Dangerous. Verex remained motionless. Display designation, he said. The projection flickered. The corrupted segment from earlier reappeared, now stabilizing. Lines of text aligned, restoring themselves piece by piece. Original classification, Death World Prime. The chamber went silent. Not controlled silence. Something deeper. A recognition of what that designation implied. Prime. Not one among many. The first. The most extreme. A world that had not merely tested its dominant species, but attempted to erase it, again and again. And failed. Varex's voice, when it came, was lower. They named their own world, he said. After survival. No, the archivist replied. The response was immediate. Precise. They renamed it, it said. The distinction settled heavily. They had changed it. Hidden it. Another segment of the file unlocked. Military data. Sparse, but enough. Orbital schematics far more advanced than previously recorded. Fleet signatures, dormant, concealed. Weapon systems that did not match the profile of a developing civilization. They masked their capabilities, the archivist said. A representative from the upper tiers rose slightly. To what extent? The archivist paused. Then, unknown. The answer carried weight. Varex turned slowly. Summon the human envoy, he said. Armin Hale entered the chamber without hesitation. He had expected this. The moment he crossed the threshold, he felt it, the shift. The atmosphere was different now. Not dismissive. Not amused. Focused. Every eye in the chamber followed him as he stepped onto the lowest tier. He did not look up. He did not need to. He could feel their attention. Varex stood above him, the projections still active between them. You have been deceptive, Varex said. Armin's voice remained calm. We have been cautious. The projection shifted, revealing the classification again. Death World Prime. Varex watched him closely. Explain. Armin glanced at the display. Then back at Varex. You already understand, he said. No, Varex replied. We understand fragments. Armin nodded slightly. Then I'll give you context. The chamber stilled. We were not born into stability, Armin said. We built it. Slowly. At a cost. Images flickered again, war, collapse, recovery. We fought each other, he continued. Not once. Not twice. Repeatedly. Each time we learned. Each time we adapted. A representative interrupted. You nearly destroyed yourselves. Armin met its gaze. Yes. And yet you continued? Yes. The answer was simple. Unapologetic. A different voice spoke, uncertain. Why? Armin considered the question. Then, because stopping meant extinction. The words settled across the chamber. No defiance. No pride. Just truth. Varex stepped forward slightly. You developed weapons capable of planetary destruction, he said. You deployed them. And still, you survived. Armin's gaze did not waver. We learned restraint. The archivist flickered. Your records suggest otherwise. Armin allowed a faint shift in expression. You're reading the beginning, he said. Not the end. Silence followed. Varex studied him, recalibrating. You concealed your military capacity, he said. Yes. Why? Armin's answer came without delay. Because we know what fear does to people. The chamber absorbed that. A representative leaned forward, voice tight. You expect us to believe you are not a threat? Armin shook his head slightly. No, he said. I expect you to understand that we could be. The admission landed harder than denial ever could. Varex's posture changed, subtle, but undeniable. You refuse tribute, he said. Yes. You conceal your strength. Yes. You warn us against further investigation. Yes. Varex paused. Then, and you expect the Council to accept this? Armin held his gaze. I expect the Council to decide whether it wants a conflict. The chamber went still. Not from shock. From realization. This was no longer about compliance. Or hierarchy. It was about consequence. The projection shifted again, highlighting the concealed fleet signatures. The silence stretched. Then, quietly, almost to himself, Varric said, "They were never unarmed." No one argued. No one laughed. For the first time since humanity had entered the chamber. No one underestimated them. And somewhere within the Council's systems, deeper layers of human history continued to unlock, each revelation more unsettling than the last. The decision came faster than anyone expected. Fear had a way of accelerating logic. The Galactic Council did not formally declare war. That would have required consensus, debate, and time. Instead, they chose something more precise, something they believed measured, controlled, and necessary. A demonstration. High Executive Varric stood at the center of the command platform, the vast observation deck of the Citadel stretching out before him. Below, the blue giant star churned with violent elegance, its surface folding and erupting in endless cycles of fire. Beyond it, the void waited, silent, indifferent. "Confirm fleet positions," Varric said. A cluster of officers responded instantly, their stations alive with shifting data. "Task groups 1 through 6 are in transit," one reported. "Estimated arrival at Sol system within 8 standard cycles." "Formation?" Varric asked. "Containment pattern," another replied. "Non-aggressive configuration." Varric's gaze remained fixed ahead. Containment. A careful word. They would not attack. Not yet. They would surround, observe, and demonstrate the scale of Council power. It was a calculated move, designed to force compliance without escalation. At least, that had been the intent. "Long-range scans of Sol?" Varric asked. "Minimal activity," an officer said. "No significant fleet presence detected. Standard planetary defense grid." A pause. "Primitive," the officer added. Varric did not respond. He had seen the data. He had seen enough to question assumptions. "Maintain observation," he said. The fleet arrived in silence. Hundreds of vessels translated into the outer edges of the Sol system, emerging from folded space in precise formation. Each ship held position, engines dimmed, weapons powered but not engaged. From a distance, it looked like a wall. A line drawn across the dark. The command ship held the center position, its sensors sweeping the system in wide arcs. "Begin full scan," the lead officer ordered. Data flooded the displays. Planetary bodies identified. Orbital paths calculated. Artificial satellites catalogued. "Primary inhabited world confirmed," the officer said. "Third planet. Earth." The image resolved, blue, white, alive. "Defense grid active," another officer reported. "Low-tier shielding. Limited orbital platforms." A faint ripple of confidence moved through the bridge. "Any fleet activity?" Varric asked. "Negative," the officer replied. "No significant military presence detected." The words hung there. Too clean. Varric narrowed his gaze. "Expand skin range," he said. "Deep spectrum." The officer hesitated. "Executor, that would require." "Do it." The command was quiet. "Final." The officer complied. Sensors shifted, widening their reach, probing deeper into the system, past the visible, past the expected. For a moment, nothing changed. Then, "Signal detected," the officer said. Another voice joined. "Multiple signals." A third. "Reading interference." The displays flickered. Data streams overlapped, scrambled, then reformed. Shapes began to emerge. Not where they should be. Not where anything should be. "Contact," the officer said, voice tightening. "Outer system. Beyond standard orbital zones." The image stabilized. And the room went still. Ships. Dozens at first. then hundreds. Then more. They were positioned far beyond the expected defensive perimeter, hidden in the cold darkness of deep space, their signatures masked until the expanded skin pierced the veil. They were not idle. They were waiting. Identification? Verex asked. The response came slower this time. Unknown design, the officer said. Configuration does not match exploratory or civilian vessels. The image zoomed. The ships were massive. Not sleek. Not elegant. Built with purpose. Layered armor plating. Reinforced hulls. Weapon arrays integrated directly into the structure, not as additions, but as core components. They were not designed to travel. They were designed to endure. To fight, someone whispered. Verex stepped closer to the display. How long have they been there? He asked. Unknown, the officer said. They were concealed. The realization spread quickly. These ships had not been deployed in response to the Council fleet. They had been there already. Prepared. Waiting. Count, Verex said. The officer swallowed. Continuing analysis. Numbers climbed. Silently. Relentlessly. The room grew colder with each update. This is not a defense grid, another officer said quietly. This is a fleet. No, Verex said. His voice cut through the tension. This is a reserve. The distinction mattered. A defense reacted. A reserve endured. Any movement? He asked. Negative, the officer said. They are holding position. Not advancing. Not retreating. Watching. Just as the Council fleet had intended to do. Executor, a voice said from behind. Verex turned slightly. A communications officer stood rigid, uncertainty evident even through discipline. We are receiving a transmission. Source? The third planet. Earth. Verex considered for a moment. Then, display it. The central screen shifted. The image that appeared was simple. A single figure. Commander Armin Hale. No uniform insignia. No background display. Just a neutral setting, carefully controlled. He stood still, looking directly into the projection. Into them. High Executor, Armin said. His voice carried clearly, unfiltered. You've come a long way to observe us. No accusation. No anger. Just fact. Verex did not respond immediately. You concealed your fleet, he said at last. Armin inclined his head slightly. Yes. Why? Verex asked. Armin's expression did not change. For the same reason you arrived with yours, he said. A pause. Preparation. The words settled between them. Verex stepped forward. You understood our intent, he said. Yes. And you chose not to reveal your capabilities. Yes. Why? Armin held his gaze. Because we didn't want you to make this mistake. Silence followed. Not empty. Heavy. The weight of what had already been set in motion. You believe this is a mistake? Verex asked. Armin did not hesitate. Yes. The response was calm. Certain. You entered our system with a fleet. Armin continued. You call it containment. Observation. A faint shift in his tone. But from our perspective, it looks like the beginning of something else. The implication was clear. Verex felt it. You are suggesting, he said, that we intend aggression. I'm saying, Armin replied, that we've seen this before. The words lingered. Not a threat. A warning. Verex glanced at the display behind him, the hidden armada, silent and immense. You could have revealed this earlier, he said. Armin shook his head slightly. And what would you have done? Verex did not answer. They both knew. Armin exhaled once. Measured. We ended our wars, he said. Not because we lost the ability to fight, but because we understood the cost. The camera did not move. His eyes did not shift. We are not looking for another one. A pause. But we are ready. The final words landed without force. They didn't need it. The message was already clear. Varek stood in silence. For the first time since humanity had entered the Council, certainty eluded him. He looked at the fleet, at the planet, at the man on the screen, and understood. This was not a species seeking approval. This was a species that had survived itself. A species that had nothing left to prove. Order the fleet to withdraw, Varek said quietly. The bridge froze. Executor? The officer asked. Withdraw, Varek repeated. No hesitation this time. Commands were issued. Engines ignited. One by one, the Council ships turned away, slipping back into folded space, their presence fading from the system. The wall dissolved. The line erased. The transmission remained for a moment longer. Armin watched in silence as the last ship vanished. Then he spoke once more. Thank you, he said. The connection ended. The council chamber reconvened in silence. No formal declaration was made. No vote recorded. But the outcome was understood. Earth would not provide tribute. Humanity would not be classified as a developing species. A new designation was entered into the archives. High risk, do not provoke. The file remained incomplete. Much of humanity's history still sealed. Untouched. No one pushed further. Some knowledge was not worth the cost. Far from the citadel, Armin stood once more before the stars. The system was quiet again. Peaceful. For now. He watched the darkness for a long moment. Then turned away. Humanity had chosen restraint. But the galaxy had learned something far more important. Earth was not its true name. And some names were better left unspoken.